Builder Choice podcast, where we explore the topics that move you in the direction of becoming the builder of choice in your market with your buyers, employees, and trade partners. I'm Emma Wildermuth, the host of your podcast and president of the Shinn Group. And today I'm honored to have my guest, Bob Mirman, today. And we are going to discuss how the customer journey impacts the development of a strong and trusting relationship with your buyers. So important. So I'm really excited to introduce Bob. As the founder and CEO of a 41-year-old Eliant company, Bob Mirman has worked with over 1,800 home builders in the U.S., Canada, and even the Middle East. With offices in California and North Carolina, Eliant continuously monitors homebuyer ratings of over 240 builder clients. Eliant assists builders to really understand their customers and work toward continuously improving the customer experience. The goal of which is to improve each buyer's willingness to refer to their builder to a friend. It's all about generating additional sales from homeowner referrals, which are free, by the way. So I'm really excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Emma Jane. It's fun to be here. Always fun.
Will you tell us a little more about yourself and your passion around providing extraordinary experiences for customers?
Sure. It all started out, my original chosen profession was as a clinical psychologist. And I did that for a few years, then started working with consulting companies in business and found out that I really liked the psychology in business settings more than I liked the psychology working in mental hospitals and clinics. So I gradually, over a period of weeks, it didn't take very long. When I say gradually, I mean, it was pretty quick. Made the transition to business consulting. I worked with a guy named Fran Tarkenton. He put together a group of psychologists that were similarly inclined to my chosen kind of psychology in business. We worked on behavior modification principles, and we're really trying to change behaviors in the business settings. We're very successful. So I was hired by General Mills to be their staff psychologist assigned to the national sales division in Minneapolis. And we had over 1,000 salespeople and districts all over the country. And I was responsible for evaluations of performance and motivational programs, incentive programs, training, and all the above. And found that to be a great process and learned what it was like to work with big companies. And then I started my own company after leaving there in Minneapolis after 8 years of the snow and cold. I decided that I'd be better off in the sunny Southern California. So I moved there in '84 and started National Survey Systems, which they later we renamed as Eliant in 2002. And some of my first clients, thankfully, after ridding myself of working with auto dealerships, which I found to be very disappointing in many ways, we started working with home builders. Shea Homes was my first client in 1984. And it went from there, and we grew exponentially over the years. And here we are 41 years later, doing the same kinds of things, working to show home builders how to provide levels of customer experience that drive sales from referrals. So that's a brief history, and it's worked out very well.
Well, you covered my next question of how you stumbled into the home building industry, because so many of us kind of stumble into this industry and find it very rewarding. So I'd love to hear the fact that you've gone kind of tried out different industries and found that you really enjoy working in the home building industry.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what do you find so enjoyable about this industry?
Well, when I was working with auto dealers for a couple of years, when I first started the company in '84, there wasn't a commitment. They just wanted to make it look good. And we're talking to customers. They just want to be able to say, yeah, we're talking to our customers, but we're also ignoring what they say, which is basically what they did. So it was a frustrating experience. And when I got the call from Shea Homes, I took off in that direction and really never looked back. So because this industry really cares in general, for the most part, about customers and what they think. And they trust the fact that if they do that, they're going to generate a reputation that drives referrals, which is the way it really works out. So it's been a fun experience.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I find that too. That's one of the reasons why, my dad stumbled into the industry and then I stepped out for a short period of time and got reeled back in. And it's so hard because the, the passion that most builders
Yeah.
have about building homes for families, single people, families, older people, active adults, whoever they're building for, there's just such a passion for doing the right thing and building the right product for the right person. So
Yeah, and I think
that's
you probably know me well enough to understand that I couldn't be doing something for 41 years that I wasn't passionate about. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And that's the reason why it's worked so well for me and my staff, and the clients that we serve all these years, both builders and lenders and design companies, pretty much anybody associated with the new home industry. So it's worked out very well. And I am proud of what we've done.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and that makes you a leader as well in your organization and in the industry, really being passionate about what you're doing. So I appreciate you being here with me today.
Sure. Happy to be
Um,
here.
so you and I spoke ahead of time because I really like to make sure that we're all on the same page and kind of have a discussion about what we're going to talk about. And we spent a little bit of time talking about the many challenges builders face when dealing with customers. And one of the issues is the excuses everyone is making about uncertain times.
Yeah.
This has been the case for so many years now, and will it be an issue moving forward? How do you work through this objection? And what are some of the things to consider when you're talking with a buyer?
Well, when you think about uncertainty, yeah, we are in an uncertain time, and especially since the change in administration, everything's kind of going different directions at all the time. There's a lot of uncertainty about recessions and fears about interest rates, and you know what? But when are we not in an uncertain time? When is there a clear time in our history that we've ever been just absolutely clear on what's going on and everything's predictable? And the answer is no, of course. But my major concern is that our sales associates who listen to these objections all the time start after a while to believe it. And they start to think that this really is something to be dealt with in that manner. And they believe it to the extent that then they start making excuses to fit their buyer's objections. I remember at the height of the Grand Recession, when about a third of my clients went out of business in 2010,
Mhm.
and the other two-thirds stopped selling homes, and that was our major business. We had probably 300 builder clients at that point, and I had 48
Yeah.
people, and I had to lay off 45. So there was a lot of negativity going on that, if you fall into that and say that's my excuse, um, it's death. It's the death spiral. But here we are 15 years
Mhm.
later because I took some risks and decided that I wasn't just going to sit there. And one of the things I wrote down, I saw this quote and I wrote it down. I put it in big letters right above my desk, so I had to read it every day. Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. I love that quote. I still have it
Mm.
right here on my desk because there's never anything that goes positive all the time. And the history of failed new home communities is littered with salespeople who listened to their buyers' objections and then accepted that as their excuses. And there's
Mhm.
no reason to do that. You don't need to do that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I remember back in the 1990s, just after I had started my company, about 6 years later, I worked with a company in Los Angeles that built a new home community under the power wires next to a railroad track. And at night, sometimes you could hear gunshots. So there were three
Oh.
major possible objections. They had three salespeople that worked there for the first year, never sold much at all, way behind expectations and hopes. Then they hired one guy. I remember his name. I'm not going to mention it because he's still around today. I'm not going to do that. But his thought was, I'm going to sell homes like I know how to sell homes. And he did. He sold it at a pace that was unexpected because he didn't pay attention to the objections. He just sold the value and he sold it in a positive manner. And he believed that. There's
Yes.
one of my favorite TV shows that I like to watch. It's called Bar Rescue. A guy named John Tapper goes around to different bars that are being threatened with bankruptcy because they're not being run very well, and he helps correct it. And one of his trademark lines is, "I don't accept excuses. I embrace solutions." And we need to be doing the same thing. What's wrong with that? So I don't believe that excuses should be listened to. I don't think we don't have enough to listen to our buyers' excuses, that we should not be listening to that. So I don't believe in excuses.
Oh,
Did I
I
make it
love
pretty
that so
clear?
much. Oh, I love that so much. And you know, it's fun. It's interesting because there are so many things that there's so many reasons why people can choose not to move in a particular direction. But I tell them all the time, I'm like, whatever choice you make, even if you make a choice or you don't, you're still making a choice. And so you can choose to follow this negative path
Right.
and go down in doom and gloom, or you can choose to like find new ways to do things, find new solutions, as you say. So I love, love, love that. There's always a path out. There's always a
That's right.
path out.
That's right. That's right. There has to be. There has to be.
Well, that's fantastic. So another thing we talked about was facing the expectations that buyers have. Now, you and I both know people can create expectations out of the sky, out of thin air. They'll create any kind of expectation if we don't set that expectation for them. So is this something that you see as a result, you know, when you're doing the surveys through Eliant? What are some of the things, the issues that builders face with regard to expectations?
Well, I go along with what you just said. You don't want your buyer to be the one setting your standards for you. If you don't set them, they will tell you what they expect. And that's the worst position to be in, because you know their expectations are not going to be easy to meet and to fulfill and beat. What I just wrote my second book. It's called Homebuyers Talk, and it's 100 pages of the best comments and suggestions that we've had delivered to us in the surveys that we do. We do over 200,000 home buyer surveys every year. So there's a lot of, and there's every buyer has an average of 6 comments that they leave in their survey. So there's a lot of comments that come in. We took the best ones and put them in this book. But one of my favorites, particularly about the area of expectations, is this quote: my superintendent told me that I had to lower my expectations. This is from a buyer who said that she had complained about some things that were promised but not delivered. And the superintendent said, listen, we're not a custom builder. We can't do those things, but lower your expectations, when that shouldn't have been the response of that superintendent. The goal in every transaction, I think, is to minimize anxiety. Anxious buyers will
Mm-hmm.
not refer their friends. So to the extent that people know where they're headed and are given feedback along the way to help them understand where they are in that route, their anxiety level is going to be reduced to a very calm and trusting nature. Anxious buyers are not trusting buyers, and not people who don't trust you will never refer. We're going to get back to that in a little while. I'm hoping, because that's a major
Yes.
topic that we're working on with our clients today, is how to build trust. And you don't build that by making customers anxious, by keeping them in the dark, and by giving
Mm-hmm.
expectations that, or not giving expectations at all, or giving expectations that are unrealistic. And by the way, this is not, there's a general feeling in the industry that this conversation really applies only to entry level buyers, because entry level buyers don't know what to expect. So we have to go out of our way to explain it to them, and them only. We don't need to do it for the experienced buyers, buyers who have purchased 3 homes before, or built their own home, or have been around for a while. Everyone needs to have expectations set, because even though a buyer has built 3 homes before, or built or purchased 4 new homes before, it was a while ago. And even if they did it just
Mm-hmm.
last year, things have changed so much in terms of what the process is like, the lending environment, the restrictions, the government regulations, the documentation that needs that lenders have. Everything has changed. So we need to set expectations for all people, not just for entry level people. And by the way,
Oh,
when you think you know your buyer well enough to say, I don't need to tell this buyer where this is going, not the case. Don't make that assumption unless you're Sigmund Freud and you know exactly who that buyer is. Don't make the assumption that you know that buyer well enough to predict whether that buyer needs to have expectations set. I remember my first day in grad school, my abnormal psych professor said, The only normal people are the ones you don't know very well, meaning that we
Right.
can't read people very well. We have to get to know them first. So don't assume that your buyer does not have to have expectations set for them. It's a faulty logic. You can't fall for that.
Oh, yeah. So I have an experience that it would be kind of fun to digest or dissect this a little bit with you. So I have a friend, and I use this a lot of times when I'm talking in builder groups. One of the things I find is that I don't know how many builders actually have bought a new home and gone through the process as a buyer. And I did ask that question because I kind of like sit back and I assume, and that's not good to assume, but I assume that everybody has gone through the buying process at least once, but they haven't. And so they assume that they're so well versed in the process of home building that they don't understand what the buyer doesn't know. And so they kind of just think that the buyer knows what the process is and doesn't take the time to figure out what they don't know. Would you say that's a true statement, or is there something to that?
I wish I could be paid a fee for every time that a superintendent or a sales manager or a mid-level manager in our builder clients volunteered to me that they just purchased a home from their home builder, from their employer, and found out how the system really works. And it really did not please them to find out that it wasn't as smooth as they thought it was before they went through it. Absolutely. At one point, I was recommending half-heartedly, but half seriously, that you should make every one of your salespeople buy a home from you. Give them a good credit and make it cheap, but let them buy from you to see how the process actually works. Do the same thing for your construction superintendents. Now, I know that's not going to work. It won't happen that way. But sometimes the only way to find out what's going on is to experience it yourself. The second best way to do that is to talk to the people who have actually gone through it and listen to what they have to say, which is why we do the surveys that we do.
Right. And they're so helpful. So helpful. My friend just bought a house. They moved in February. They put the contract in the year before, and the builder just kind of was like, here you go. You can pick out whatever you want. Didn't give them any timelines, didn't give them any specifics on what they could go buy, what their allowances covered. And she's like, by the time it was done, she'd spent so much time driving back and forth. They were living on the north side of town with her father-in-law. They were buying on the south side of town. So it was an hour to an hour and a half drive on both sides. And she's just like tearing her hair out. And she's like, okay, I like my house, but it was so much work. And I think she would not refer that builder to anybody else because it's like it was such a headache and so challenging that she wouldn't refer that builder to anybody else.
Emma Jane, so many of the problems as builders that we expect, not expect, but actually find on our doorstep are self-created by not setting the proper expectations. Why don't we tell our buyers up front? Many of our clients do. Most of them should. Why don't we tell them right up front, listen, you're going to be asked for the same document multiple times. Why don't we tell them, listen, this is a difficult process. This home is being built out in the outside weather. The weather conditions are going to affect the build. Delivery problems are going to happen. There are environmental issues and restrictions that we have. Things are not going to go in a straight line perfectly all the time. We're going to have some problems. My job is to help prevent those problems, but it's also to let you know when they occur and to be honest with you. I'll be just as upfront and urgent as telling you when things go south a little bit as I am when things are happy, because you can trust me to do that. So that's about telling buyers the honest reasons for these, and give the reasons why they're going to be asked for multiple documents, because they all get pissed off. We all do. I did it. I understand it. And I was still upset when I was bothered with that. So the keys to setting expectations are being proactive. Don't wait for the buyer to ask you. Lower expectations to a reasonable level that you know you are planning to beat. And it's simple.
Absolutely.
It's not the big things, it's the small things too. So if you promise to call a buyer back by 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, call them back at 1 o'clock, call them back in the morning. That's a worst case scenario, is to meet the expectations, because buyers who are satisfied by having you meet the expectations They're not going to go out and refer proactively, beat the
Right.
expectation, and they will drag their friends into your sales offices. That's the deal.
That's awesome. There was one thing you mentioned just now that I want to bring up too. When I was talking of when you were talking about having the salesperson, the superintendent, the field guy, the in-house guy, about going through the experience.
Yeah.
How important is it for everybody in the organization to be on the same page and have a consistent message throughout the entire process? So if your buyer comes in and they happen, for some reason, it's not likely, but they're talking to the purchasing agents, the purchasing manager, they happen to be in the office or whatever, and they find out, how important is it the message that sales says, that the field says, that the owner says, that the purchasing guy says? How important is that message is consistent?
Consistency is missing all too often, but let me tell you the most egregious instance of that happening in terms of the conceptual position is when a buyer, and by the way, every buyer wants to know the answer to one question when they sign that contract, and that is, everybody's shaking their head, they all know, you all know, when will my home be ready to move in so I can move my family in and celebrate this wonderful occasion? They want to know that right from the day of contract or before. Now, when they ask that question of the salesperson, they have to get the same answer that they do when they meet the superintendent at their home the next day just by bumping into them. They want to get the same answer. So both parties need to be on the same page. How can I trust you as a salesperson or a superintendent if you give me a different answer than I got from the person I asked yesterday or even earlier today? It's like if you have two watches and each one has a little bit different time, which one do you believe? And that's the purpose
Right.
of being consistent. That's why communication between construction and purchasing and with sales needs to be the recipient of that information. It needs to be accurate and it needs to be coming in quickly. That information has to be accurate, and you have to have a game plan for when you are asked that question, which you'll be inevitably the recipient of that question from every single buyer. Have the same answer. If you don't know it, look it up on your phone. Don't just lose stuff. So, without question, consistency in those expectations and the reality of presenting that is the guideline. It's the force behind trust. I have to trust that you're going to give me the answer that's accurate, and that's what that's to have a consistent response. That was a little
Oh yeah,
long.
and
I
just
apologize for that, but the basic message is yes, it's important.
yeah. Well, and I appreciate that because that's what I was looking for. And along the way, by setting the expectations, we're building trust. By having a consistent message, we're building trust. And that leads me into this next little section, this other question that we were talking about. When creating a customer experience journey, how important is it that top management and leadership participate in that process?
Okay. So part of our job at Eliant is to figure out what elements of the experience, what is it about the purchase and ownership experience that drive a buyer's willingness to say, absolutely, I'd be happy to recommend this builder? What are the consistent factors in the strongest rated builders? And we rank all of our builders from 1 to 250. We have 250 builders now. From 1 to 250, who's doing the best job, and what is it about those top 10 builders that's consistent? What can we teach our other builders? Here's what the number one thing is. The number one consistent pattern in the top rated builders is that the leadership is actively involved in the customer experience process. They support it, they define it, they're willing to pay incentives based on the team performance in that regard. They talk about it in every single meeting. They read off comments from buyers in every meeting to remind everybody what they're trying to do. They highlight in every meeting the names of divisions, the name of division presidents, the name of superintendents, the name of salespeople who are doing a great job in delivering an experience. They are actively supporting and engaged in the experience process. And that's the number one driver behind divisions and companies that perform really well. It's a consistent pattern that we've seen over and over. I mean, if you take a look at our top rated builders, the Olson Company for 10 years now has been our top rated single division company. And Scott Laurie, the president of that company, is absolutely engaged every minute of every day in that experience. He gets copies of every survey, he reads them, he calls the people that were involved in dealing with that buyer if there's a problem, or if he congratulates the people that were involved if the buyer said everything went well, which in his case typically they do. Everybody understands that if Scott and Bill Holford, the two leaders of that company, and Matt Savio, there are three leaders who are actively involved. If they're that involved, we have to perform to expectations. That's what they expect. We have to do it. And that's what happens. They're as committed at the top as they expect their people to be. It's critical. It's crucial.
That's awesome. Here's another question on that same path. We talked about this because sometimes, people make excuses. We talked about that at the very beginning and how we have to eliminate excuses.
No excuses.
Are only big builders, builders with big budgets, able to provide a strong customer experience, a good customer journey, or can anybody do that?
It's funny. We rank all of our builders, and we don't pay attention to their size as much. Some builders, some of the bigger builders complain that I'm being compared as a big builder against smaller builders that have the personal touch with their clients. And we have multiple divisions, and the small builders say, how can I be compared on your surveys, Bob, to the larger builders? They have more money. They can do a lot more things for their buyers. So no one sees that there doesn't matter. The buyer doesn't care whether you're a big builder or a small builder, you have money or you don't have money, or you have a lot of staff or you don't. They just care how are they being treated. So we don't discriminate that. There's one evaluation that we do where we take the larger builders and we discriminate. The single division builders are not compared to the multi-division builders on our final award, but every other award, we keep them together. And there's no bias in that. The bottom line is, how are your buyers being treated? Your buyers don't care about your size. So that's the answer to that.
I love it. Because you're right. It's just another level of excuses that people will make is, oh, well, I don't have the budget for that. But I don't think it costs anything to be kind and set expectations and really take care of your buyer through the process.
Not only that, there's more to it than that. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. Maybe if there's a cost in doing some little gifts or something, but it's so minor, it's not even worth discussing. But the bottom line is that the clients that we have that are the top rated builders of this entire group that have extremely high customer delight scores, high willingness to refer. We have some of our clients, we average 25% sales from referrals across all of our clients because we ask every buyer, were you referred to this builder by a friend? So we know the answer to that. But we have two of our clients that actually sell 50% or more of their homes based on a referral. You know what that does to your marketing and sales cost? By the way, those builders also get better insurance rates because the likelihood of a lawsuit, the likelihood of any serial litigators falling into that group is so small that their insurance costs, their insurance premiums are significantly less than other builders with the same size and the same conditions, but don't have the same level of customer delight and willingness to refer. It's an interesting process. Wow. You can actually save money by doing this. It doesn't cost more.
So what are some of the comments or the feedback that you get from builders that are getting those high referral rates? What are some of the things that the buyers are saying that they're pointing out specifically that are important to them and for those builders?
That's a great question, Emma Jane. I'll tell you, we rank every question on we have three basic benchmark surveys, one right after move-in, one at 6 months to talk about customer service issues, and one at the end of the year that goes into home quality and customer service. So we take a look at every question on those three benchmark surveys, and we correlate it statistically through a regression analysis to find out which of those questions have the biggest impact on the one most important question on our evaluations. The most important question is, how likely are you to refer a friend to this builder? Pretty simple. And we know which
Yeah.
questions on the survey are correlated with that. The number one question, which is correlated with willingness to refer, is this: were you kept informed of construction progress without your having to ask? How much simpler can it be? It's a very specific thing. Just keep your buyers informed about where you are in the journey to complete your home without them getting so anxious because no one is called. They get anxious.
Mm-hmm.
They have to call you now. So you're going to get a lot of phone calls. Hey, where are we? Are my countertops in? Did we started trenching yet? I know you won't let me into the house until it's completed, but is drywall completed yet? I mean, all those questions can be eliminated. The calls can be eliminated, which is what happens when you start communicating that information proactively to your buyers. So we have a whole list, 1 through 10, of those kinds of questions. That's the number one thing. And how difficult is it to communicate with a buyer and let that buyer know where that buyer stands rather than being in the dark? It doesn't cost any money to do it. It's just making calls. And we have techniques that we give to our client to make those calls very easily by just leaving messages on their voicemail automatically.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many techniques that we found to make that happen, but that's the number one issue. And it drives willingness to refer in a big way.
Wow. That's
And by the way, every
amazing.
one of those top rated builders, their score on proactive communication is at the top as well. It's a direct correlation. It's
Yep.
beautiful.
Well, people just want to be communicated with, right? Like they don't want to spend hours with you on the phone. Most. I mean, there are those ones
There
where you're
are some,
like, I
most
can't
of
call that one until the end of the day.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they just want to spend 5 minutes with you, going over what's going on with their home and figuring that out.
Yeah, it's not about
Oh,
having a conversation. It's about communication. You don't need to have a long conversation. Everyone says, well, we can't call them because if we call them, they don't want to get bothered at work. So we have to call them at night after 5 o'clock, and they don't want to be bothered when they're having dinner. They're playing with their kids. They're spending time with their family. They're watching their favorite shows. They don't want to be bothered. So when do we do it? My response is slide dial. Emma, Jane, have you ever heard of slide dial? Slide dial is an app on your phone. It's free. You can call any number on there and it goes right to their voicemail. You just leave a 15-second voicemail. Hey, by the way, this is Bob. I'm over down at the sales office. Just wanted to let you know that drywall was installed today. Great start. Call me if you have any questions. Click. That took 5 seconds to do that. And that's all the buyer needs. If they have a need for further communication, they can call you.
they'll
So it's
call you back.
very easy to do that. So many of our clients have adopted that strategy. There are other techniques as well, but that's just one.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for that tip.
Sure.
So I want to get to the trust factor, but I have one more question, and I want to talk about passionate advocacy and trust. One thing we talked about is the ease of doing business with a builder. Now, this is going to kind of dovetail into other places because I know you do the 360, the trademark. Help me out here.
Trade star evaluation.
So this, I'm going to kind of dovetail into that a little bit because we talk a lot about, on our end, we talk a lot about being a builder of choice. And we always talk about it in the space of being connected, being easy to work with your trade partners. My argument is that I think that being a builder of choice is being easy to work with as a trade partner, an employee, and of course as a buyer, and all of your stakeholders that you're working with. And so can you tell me a little bit from what you've learned from your industry for you, and this is true for any industry, but specifically home building, talk about the ease of doing business with a builder and why is that valuable?
Any task requiring excess effort will not be satisfying, and it will not lead to repeat business, nor will it lead to referrals. I mean, think about it. None of us like to work to get what we want. I mean, how many times have you been on a website and the website that you're trying to order something on is complicated and it doesn't make any sense? The buttons are in the wrong places. It's hard to use, and you go, the heck with it. I'll buy it from some other website. We don't like to, in this day and age, we have little patience for things which take an extraordinary amount of effort. And home, with all the emotional content in the home, people will put up with a lot in order to buy the home they want. And they'll work through the effort that it takes, but they won't refer you to their friends to go through the same effort. I mean, that's the deal. If it's not satisfying, if it's not a delightful experience, why would they tell their friends to come do the same thing? So we'll put up with it because we're already into it. And you're asking people to jump through hoops with the loan and document process, and the design selection experience was much too complex. You gave them too many choices. The customer service process was hard to go through. It's hard to make requests and they didn't show up, and then you have to complain. It's like, and customer service is insensitive to your needs. They don't prioritize. They don't triage all your requests. I mean, there are so many things where the process becomes onerous. And when it becomes onerous, you become anxious. And when you're anxious, you're not going to recommend it to your friends. You're not going to ask your friends to go through the same thing. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned TradeStar. TradeStar is our program where we ask our builder clients, ask their trades to evaluate them. And then in return, we ask the builders to evaluate the trades. So both parties are getting feedback from the other. And it's one of those, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't ask questions of your trades, you're not listening to what they're really thinking and what they're saying. And what they're saying is that our builder, in general, we've done this for hundreds of builders now and thousands of trades. The message is pretty clear and is pretty consistent. Trades do not like the way builders seem to be insensitive to their own needs about site preparation, about communication when there's been delays. Too many of the trades complain that they send their teams to the site only to be told that we're not quite ready for you yet. Come back in 2 days. Well, you know, it's not quite that easy to have a trade come back in 2 days when they're already scheduled everywhere else as well. So to us, the builder of choice thing, which I love that whole concept, is not just about the customers. It's about employees making a choice to work with you. It's about trades making a choice to work with you. Trades tell us all the time on our TradeStar survey that they will make choices about which crews to send to a builder. If the builder is sensitive to their needs, they will send them the best crews. They will send them on time. They will hold them accountable. They'll give them the best pricing because they want to work with builders who are amenable to their own. And what about master plan community developers? They don't want to have a build. They don't want to bring a builder in as a builder in their communities that doesn't pay attention to these things. The builders that we work with, the highest rated builders, also are the first ones to be asked to participate in a master plan community. Larry Webb, who used to be, he's retired now, but when he was the CEO and owner of New Home Company and John Lang Homes, used to brag all the time about all the master plan community developers that would call him because they knew that Larry Webb's company was going to present a customer experience that was second to none, that they get the most referrals, the lowest insurance rates. Why would they want to have another builder on there? So it's all about the builder of choice, and it's pervasive across all of these different entities. So you're on the right track there, Emma Jane.
Yeah. Well, and it goes right to trust, right? Like all of these things that we've talked about, what does that lead to? It leads to a builder you can trust. You can trust the builder is going to communicate with you. You can trust the builder is going to build your house on time. You can trust the builder is going to be ready for the trade partner when he gets there. You can trust that the builder is going to treat his trade, the crew in an appropriate manner. You can trust that. So talk about trust. We talked that we were going to get there. So tell me a little bit about trust and why that's so important and how it makes you a builder of choice.
Well, this is kind of like a question. Why is trust in a marriage so important? Can a marriage survive without trust? Absolutely not. It takes a long time to build the trust and a second, one event to create a problem with trust. And whether you're a builder or whether you're in a marriage. So the same thing happens with your customers. It takes a while for them to develop the trust that you need, that they need to be able to go forward and say, yeah, I would recommend my builder to a friend. But without trust, your buyer will never recommend you to a friend. Why would they want to send you to a friend of theirs if they don't even trust you? Why would they want to put a friend through that? So let's look at it from a personal standpoint. How do we form trusting relationships? I mean, I trust people who are honest with me. I trust people who are willing to give me the tough news as well as the good news. So it's balanced. Um, I trust people who are sincere, who are authentic with their honesty, and they're empathetic with me when things go bad. I don't want to just have some cold, heartless person tell me that my house was just vandalized and it's going to be delayed for an extra month now to repair all this stuff. I want someone who says, I'm really sorry to tell you this. And I know this is going to be hard, it's going to be hard for you to deal with the delay. I want empathy. It's one of the things that you have to produce in that. I want people who are going to keep me in the loop, not in the dark. I want people who are going to make it comfortable for me to do business with them. I want people who are looking out for my best interests in addition to the interests of their builder employer. If it's one-sided and it's all about the builder's needs rather than mine, why would I trust that individual? So I want people who are going to make realistic promises. I want people who are going to aim to beat the promises that they make, because if they just meet the promises, they're just satisfying me. And as a satisfied buyer, I am not going to go out and refer business to them on my own. But if I'm delighted by them beating the promises, I'm going to go out and do that. I want to work with people at the buyer's resources that will create lesser anxiety. I want them to reduce my anxiety, not to create it by not communicating well. One of the things that we talk about is a concept that we invented called planned surprises. Do some extra things that the buyer never expected from a builder. And I love that when they write in their surveys, they don't write it anymore, now they type it. But when they put in their surveys that this builder did something for me that I never thought a builder would do, whether it's the small things like putting a red carpet on the front door on move-in day, by having the customer service agent deliver a pizza, by offering to carry boxes in, by picking up the dead boxes a week after move-in, to getting the buyer, this is a true story, by buying the buyer who they knew had a dog, by buying a new pet tag to go with that dog, because most buyers don't think of that until they're in the house. And then they have a new address, the pets get lost on move-in day, so they bought the buyers a pet tag with the new address on there. Small things like that don't cost anything. It costs $4 for a pet tag and $10 for a pizza. So those things are helpful to that. But the biggest thing about creating trust is to do what you said you're going to do when you promise to do it. It's meeting or exceeding the promises. That's how you create trust. That's the biggest thing. And it's the basis of all the referrals that are made.
That's beautiful. I kind of want to put the stamp on it there, but I know you have a term called passionate advocacy, and you were very passionate about that term. So we'll put the exclamation point after that, and you can share what you hope that everybody got out of today.
Okay, this is a good way to cap this off. Passionate advocacy is the term that we use in our company to describe the level of satisfaction that we'd like to get in every home buyer, every homeowner. An advocate is simply a person who believes in what you're doing and is satisfied with what happened. And those people will not go out and proactively refer, as I've said before. A passionate advocate is someone who is so absolutely delighted that they'll go out and proactively bring their friends into your sales office. They'll passionately express their satisfaction with what happened. And we know who they are. That's the beauty of conducting these evaluations, these surveys. A couple 100,000 times a year we do this, and we know who the people are that said, yes, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give a 10 to my willingness to refer this builder to a friend. My God, what's the definition of passionate advocacy? Getting a 9 or a 10 on willingness to refer. So now we know who they are. So here's what we do. We send out an announcement every day to our clients, a report every single day. Here are the names of your customers, your buyers, your homeowners right after closing, right after customer service at mid-year, and at the end of the year. Here's a list of each of those times when you have passionate advocates. Call them, ask them for a referral. Don't bother too much with the people who weren't passionate. Go to the ones who said they're going to do it. So it's a great report. It creates referrals, and that's why we have so many of our builders that are getting 40, 45, and as I said before, over 50% of their sales from referrals, because they're going out and asking their passionate advocates for the names of some people that they might know are in the process of looking for a new home, or may consider, or are living in a rental community right now and want to move up, or are their kids have gone and they're empty nesters and want to move down. I mean, there's so many ways to do that, but that's what passionate advocacy is all about.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that.
Good.
I have learned so much from you today, and I've enjoyed this conversation so much. Now, if you could sum up one quick tip that you hope that somebody got, because I always think when I get up to do a presentation, I'm like, what is the one thing? I just want at least one person to get something from this conversation that they're going to take from it and they can take action from it. And what is the one thing, if you could think deeply inside you, what is the one thing you hope somebody gets from this today?
From deep inside my passionate self, I'm going to reiterate, well, I'm going to go back and tell you the one thing again to remind you all how important it is. Your job as a salesperson, as a construction superintendent, design consultant, customer service representative, is to reduce the anxiety of your buyers. That's your job. Your job as a salesperson is to sell, but your second job is to sell this buyer's friends tomorrow because of the referral. To do that, they have to be non-anxious people. You can't have anxious buyers willing to refer. So to reduce their anxiety, the one key tip is to communicate frequently the status of their construction progress, and have your lender, hold your lender accountable for communicating the status of their loan and their documentation requests proactively. Don't wait till the buyer calls and asks. If you're getting calls from buyers asking about the status of their loan, about the status of the construction, it's because they're telling you they're not getting enough information. They got anxious enough to pick up the phone and make the call. If that's happening, that's a red flag. It's waving a red flag. Start making more calls, more texts, more emails about status. So that's the key thing. Proactive communication about status of construction, status of loans. That's the cure-all to anxiety. It really does make a significant difference. Now that's one. There's so many, but that's the one I would suggest easiest to change.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that was pretty much prevalent through our whole communication today, that how important communication is. And that's probably the number one thing that people need to work more on, especially these days. I feel like people communicate less and less, and they don't work hard at making sure they have the right communication. So I love that final tip.
Yeah.
I'm so excited we spent about 45 minutes together today talking about this, and I know that our listeners are going to get some good nuggets after they've spent the time listening. So I want to thank you again for joining me today, and I look forward to future conversations with you.
Well, we look forward to your summit as well. That should be a great experience.
Yes.
April, right?
April 28th through the 30th in Cape Coral, Florida.
Yeah, down in the warm weather. That's great. Love it. Thanks for the invite to that as well.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.